On a $3 million portfolio, waiting from 62 to 70 to claim Social Security changed this couple's ending wealth by only about $116,000. On $3 million, that's about 4%. So I'm going to show you the actual math out of a case study I built for a hypothetical couple with $3 million, all four claiming scenarios side by side, and then why we still tell couples like this to wait for a reason that has nothing to do with which age produces more money. Because the number that actually decides this is $16,932 a year for life. And it isn't John's number, it belongs to his wife. I'm Mark Fonville, a certified financial planner at Covenant Wealth Advisors, a fee-only fiduciary firm in Richmond, Virginia. This video is for couples with roughly $2 to $5 million who have already settled whether to retire and are stuck on when to actually file. So let me walk through some important assumptions for you. John and Leslie Washington, both 62, both retired this year in Virginia. $3 million invested, and the number that matters later, $1,980,000 of that sits in traditional tax-deferred IRAs. They spend $85,000 a year in fixed expenses, and on top of that, healthcare premiums and out-of-pocket medical cost of $30,340 until Medicare picks up at 65. Medical costs drop considerably at that point. And travel expenses at $15,000 per year until age 75, and charitable gifts of $8,000 per year. And we also included nursing care later in life at a cost of roughly $120,000 per year for 3 years. So total spending for year one is about $138,340 after tax. And by the way, you can download the entire plan in the description below for more details and assumptions. So these projections come out of our MoneyGuidePro Elite software using assumed rates of return of 5.99% per year, and they are not actual client results. So just know that hypothetical results have inherent limitations and are not a guarantee of future performance. One more thing about this plan, and I want you to hold on to it. It already assumes John dies first at 92 and Leslie lives to 96. On the plan's own mortality table, 92 is about a 1 in 3 chance for John. 50-50 is 88. We plan past the median on purpose because planning to the median means half of couples outlive the plan. That is not the tragedy scenario, by the way. In this plan, that's the base case. So let's start where you probably came in, with the money, of course. Lifetime Social Security in today's dollars, claim at 62, and this couple collects $1,626,000. At full retirement age, 67, $1,879,000, and at 70 years old, $2,085,000. That looks pretty decisive. Now watch what it actually does to the plan. Safety margin is what we call the money left over at the end of the plan or at death. In today's dollars, claim at 62 and it's $2,394,000. $2,510,000 if they wait to age 70. A difference of about $116,000. On a $3 million portfolio, as I mentioned before, that is 3.9%. Their probability of successfully funding their lifestyle without running out of money and without spending changes is 85% at age 62, 89% at age 67, and 91% at age 70 when we run the stress testing. And the break-even ages for delaying past age 62 are 78 if they wait to full retirement age and 79 if they wait to 70 to file. So 6 points of probability is worth something for sure, and I'll come back to it. But $116,000 on $3 million is inside the noise. If your whole case for waiting is that you get more money, you do not have an overwhelmingly strong case for this couple in particular. But a wash on money is not a wash on risk. If the money can't decide this, the decision belongs to what isn't a wash. One person's income for the rest of her life. So let's go ahead and put break-even math down. It is the wrong instrument, in my opinion. Break-even measures the risk of dying early. The risk we are actually managing here is the opposite one. What delay buys is insurance on one specific person. The $16,932 a year for life. That's Leslie's number. Here's where it comes from. When one spouse dies, the survivor does not keep both Social Security checks. She keeps the larger one, and a survivor benefit is based on 100% of what the deceased spouse was actually receiving. Delayed retirement credits included. So when John delays, he isn't only raising his own check. He's raising the base her survivor benefit is calculated from for the rest of her life, indexed to inflation under current law, whether he's alive to see it or not. Here is what it means in dollars. On her own record, Leslie's benefit at full retirement age is $25,200. As a widow, she steps up. If John claimed at 67, her survivor benefit is $40,800. If John claimed at 70, it's $50,592. Now, the case where John claims early, this is where much of the internet gets it wrong in a direction that flatters my argument. If John claims at 62, his own reduced check is $29,750. You would think that's what Leslie inherits. It isn't. There's a rule called the widow's limit. It caps a survivor at the larger of two numbers. What the deceased was actually collecting, or 82.5% of his full retirement age amount. For a worker who filed early, it works as a floor. John's full retirement age amount is $40,800. 82.5% of that is $33,660. Assuming she claims as a widow at her own full retirement age or later. So Leslie's survivor benefit is $33,660, $29,750. The rule pays her more than John was collecting while he was alive. That is a rule that works against the argument I am making, and I'm showing it to you anyway, because if I used $29,750, delay would look better than it is, and that would be incorrect. So here's the honest number. $50,592 minus $33,660. That equals $16,932 a year, not the $20,842 you'd get by comparing the two checks naively. And if the real choice is between 67 and 70, those last 3 years add $9,792 a year to her survivor income. Now, put that on a widowhood. In this plan, she's widowed 4 years. Call it $68,000, but 4 years is the plan's assumption, not the risk. The risk is that she outlives it. 10 years a widow, about $169,000. 15 years a widow, $254,000. 20 years, $339,000. In today's dollars, and they stay there because survivor benefits are indexed. That's what you're insuring. Illustrative figures from a hypothetical plan, by the way, not a promise. Now, the part nobody likes to talk about, household income falls when John dies no matter what. Leslie loses her own check that same day, $25,200 if she filed at full retirement age. Delay doesn't prevent the drop. It changes how far she falls. By the way, if you're the higher earner in your marriage, does your spouse know what their check drops to if you go first? Tell me in the comments if you've ever actually run that number. I'd be interested to hear what you have to say. So which one would we actually run? The plan doesn't pick for us. It just models choices. And The one that fits the survivor math is the simplest one on the list. Both of them weight to 70. MoneyGuide scores it at 91%, the highest of the 5 strategies it compares, with 2,085,000 of lifetime benefits. The split option, John at 70, Leslie at 67, comes in a point behind at about 90%. And the survivor math is why. His record sets the floor under her, so his delay is the one that buys the insurance. Hers sets the floor under nothing but her own check, and she is the one modeled to live to 96. Waiting on both records raises the number she keeps in the number she starts from. That's really the answer for this plan. The rest of this video is why it holds up in the one test where it doesn't. By the way, if that's the kind of math you want more of, subscribe. That's most of what we do here. Now, there is a second thing delay buys this couple that shows up nowhere in the claiming comparison. And the bigger problem isn't in 2026. It's actually sitting in 2039. Start with taxes. In the delay scenarios, the plan puts their total income tax bill for 2026 at $34. Then 0 in 2027, 0 in 2028, 0 in 2029. There's no Social Security on the return yet, no wages, nothing coming out of the IRAs. The only taxable income is what the brokerage account throws off along the way. That isn't enough to clear the federal standard deduction, which is $32,200. 35 and a half once they're both 65. Long-term gains, by the way, get their own 0% bracket up to $98,900. They never come close to needing it, at least in this scenario. Now, claim at 62 instead. $48,000 of gross Social Security lands on that return from day one. $2,589 in tax in 2026, and it never returns to 0. And here's the part that runs against me because it's on this table. Across 2026 to 2039, delaying to 70 pays more tax in total, about $111,000 versus $97,000 at age 62. What delay defers shows up later on a bigger Social Security check. Delay does not necessarily buy less tax in this scenario. So what it buys is 4 years where the tax rate is essentially 0, and they choose what goes on the return, not the calendar. There's also a trap in how Social Security itself gets taxed. A middle band. Inside it, every extra dollar of ordinary income drags another 85 cents of Social Security onto the return with it. So planners call it the tax torpedo, and claiming early sails this couple into it years earlier. Now, 2039, nearly $2 million in traditional IRAs, compounding at the plan's own 5.99%, comes to around $4 million after withdrawals. That's arithmetic that we found in the plan, and they do draw on it along the way. As I said, John turned 75 that year, which is when required minimum distributions start for his birth year under Secure 2.0. The forced withdrawal is on the order of $160,000. Forced out whether they need it or not into the 22% bracket every year for the rest of the plan. That forced withdrawals is coming either way. Filing early doesn't shrink the IRA that's driving it. Delay doesn't shrink the bomb. It hands them 4 years where the rate for diffusing it is close to 0. And now remember what this plan assumes about who dies first. Put that same withdrawal on a single filer's return. The standard deduction cuts roughly in half. The provisional income threshold that decides how much of her Social Security gets taxed drops from $44,000 to $34,000. And the IRMA threshold, the Medicare surcharge, drops from $218,000 to $109,000 while they are both alive. That withdrawal doesn't reach the surcharge. On her return alone, it does. The widow's tax penalty and the RMD problem are not two problems. They're the same problem arriving in the same year. which raises the obvious question. What should they be doing for those 4 years? And that is exactly the window a Roth conversion strategy uses, and this plan doesn't run one. So I'm not showing you a projection of what converting would save them. I'm just showing you an opening the projection reveals only open because they actually waited. One honest caveat about the software, by the way, MoneyGuide spends these accounts down in a particular order, and I can't tell you what the taxable accounts basis looks like 34 years out. So that $116,000 comparison is less reliable in both directions, not more favorable to my side, but it doesn't touch the survivor math, which is where the actual case lives. Whether that window is worth using and how much of it really depends on numbers I don't have, your basis, your brackets, your state, whether one of you has a pension, for example. And if you have more questions than answers about retirement, there's a link in the description to request a strategy session. We don't charge for it. It's at no cost. It's just an introductory conversation to see whether we may be a good fit to help you kind of to and through retirement. And you can also type strategy session in the comments, and our team will send you a scheduling link as well. Okay, real quickly, here are 4 objections I often hear to all of this. Number 1 is they'll cut it in 2033. I want mine now. And the 2026 Trustees Report released June 9th projects the retirement trust fund depletes in the 4th quarter of 2032. 78% of scheduled benefits payable after that. 78%, not zero. And when Congress last fixed this in 1983, nobody already retired had their benefit formula actually cut. Modeling a cut shifts optimal claiming earlier, mainly for single people. For a married couple, the survivor benefit is precisely what's being protected. 2, I'd rather leave it invested and let the portfolio grow. The plan already does, and even after giving the early claimant those extra years in the market, the wait to 70 scenario still finishes with more wealth. The larger Social Security check covers spending the portfolio would otherwise have to fund. And economists John Chauvin and Sita Slavov looked at this in 2014 in later work. For the higher earner in a couple, they estimate delaying buys inflation-protected lifetime income on better terms than you can buy it commercially. 3, they'll means test it. Well, that's speculation, not law, and means testing would target portfolio-rich households regardless of when they claim. Claiming early doesn't dodge it necessarily. Okay, and 4, my dad died at 68. Your family history tells you something about your own benefit. It tells you nothing about Leslie's, and she is modeled to age 96. Delay is insurance on whoever lives longest, not a bet on your own longevity. Now, back to the strategy I gave you earlier, both of them at 70. Now, one thing that runs against me, and you'd find it yourself if you pulled this plan apart, 70 is not the winner on every test. Under an adverse sequence of returns, bad markets early when the portfolio can least afford them, here's where the safety margin lands. $1,404,000 at age 67, $1,401,000 at age 70, and $1,381,000 at age 62. Waiting does beat claiming early here by about $20,000, but the top of that list isn't 70. It's 67 by $3,000 on 1.4 million. And 67 does something else. Across 2026 to 2039, it pays the least tax of the 3, about $91,000 against $111 at age 70. But notice what that test measures. What's left in the portfolio, not the income floor she keeps. Bad timing is exactly the case where the portfolio can't be the plan, and where a check she can't outlive is actually worth the most. Now, all 3 still fund 100% of this couple's needs and wants in this projection. But if somebody tells you 70 wins every test, it doesn't always. It wins the one this video is about. So the case for 70 was never the lowest tax bill, and it was never the safest under stress necessarily. 67 edges it on both. What 70 buys is the highest probability of success in this plan, 91% against 89, and the biggest number she keeps. And she is the one modeled, again, to live to 96. So 3 takeaways from this. The raw dollars are about $116,000. That's small. Survivor income, $16,932 a year for life. That's large. And a 4-year near zero tax window sitting in front of a $160,000 forced withdrawal. That one isn't a number, it's a decision, and it does have a deadline for you. That third one is the one with a clock on it. If you want it run on your numbers alongside your portfolio and your income picture, just reach out and we'll see whether we can help. Here's what I want you to leave with. The version of this decision that matters isn't the one John makes at 62. Feeling healthy, looking at a break-even chart. It's the one Leslie lives inside at 84. That's whose income you are actually setting. Retirement income planning, tax planning, and investment management planned as one. John and Leslie are a hypothetical couple. These are MoneyGuidePro projections built on assumed rates of return, not actual client results, and hypothetical results have inherent limitations. So don't reflect trading costs or fees and are not a guarantee of future performance. And this video is educational only and is not individualized investment, tax, or Social Security advice. I'll see you on the next video.